On today's show, we're talking with Jimmy Onate, and we're talking on the human performance side of things.
Welcome to another episode of the Baseball Awakening Podcast, where we dive into the raw, unfiltered, unsexy side of player development. Get ready for some knowledge bombs with your host, Geoff Rottmayer.
Welcome to the Baseball Awakening Podcast. I'm Geoff Rottmayer, and today I'm sitting down with Jimmy Onate, the Human Performance Collaborative at The Ohio State University. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Jimmy, I really appreciate your time. It's nice and early here in the morning. So, I've had a few people actually reach out to me and see if I can get you on the show. So I really appreciate you coming on, and we're looking forward to kind of listening and learning from you.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I paid a couple people to talk to you, so that's perfect.
There you go. Okay, well, let's just start with this. Let's start with kind of your background in baseball. I mean, you're on the human side, the human performance side of things, but it looks like you got your hands in quite a bit of things. So let's just kind of go through your background in your raising in baseball, and then kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I was kind of trying to prepare for this thing, and I'm looking back and I'm like, well, man, my baseball career is really uneventful, relative to other speakers that you've had on. So I grew up in upstate New York, the three-sport athlete. But I remember, for me, the passion of playing baseball, I still vividly remember my older brother going down to Little League signups and me not being allowed to sign up because I was too young. And, that was year after year after year. He's 5 years older than me. And then I remember playing my first time, and I can still remember the park and where we practiced. And nothing was fancy. It was, back of the school. And, but there was people who were passionate about trying to teach us how to play. Fast forward, I played high school baseball with a great coach, Mark Laney. And, I played, probably my proudest thing is I played 4 years. I started every game, played every inning. 82 games, shortstop, and he ran me out there when we were, young and terrible, and then we, got better as we went along. And then I stayed close to home, played a little D3 ball at a quote unquote smart school, an engineering school. That was a great fit from a baseball standpoint, but it was a bad fit from a personal and academic standpoint, where it was just I just finished off paying my loans about 6 months ago. So I transferred a couple times chasing the baseball dream, and then I finally hung up the cleats when I went to University of Florida and concentrated on my exercise science, athletic training career, and kind of left baseball for a little bit, and then I got back into it when I moved into the Virginia area, playing some adult ball, and then really got back into it when I moved to Ohio about 10 years ago. And I've been coaching, helping to coach at Olentangy Liberty High School up in Powell, Ohio, just outside of Columbus. And that's been fantastic. That's my family. All the kids and the coaches. It's, for me, baseball is kind of a platform for being able to do a variety of different things. And,
Right.
And Ty Brenning's the head coach, and he's accepted my in and out abilities to try to do some things to try to be impactful. And I could be more grateful to him and everybody else. So
Very cool. So how did this lead you to the human performance side and getting into that side of things?
Yeah, so I have a PhD in human movement science. It's kind of like a catch-all. I have a specialization in biomechanics and motor learning.
Nice.
For about 10 years, for 20 years, I've been studying knee injuries, anterior cruciate ligament injuries, and concussion, and then a variety of different things. I've tested everybody from collegiate athletes, football, basketball, baseball, to middle school kids and high school kids, and Navy SEALs and things of that nature. But baseball was always kind of tugging at me. And when I got back into, when I moved to Ohio State, we had a new lab manager who was very interested in baseball. So that got me into the baseball research side of things. And I've been doing that now for about 9 years. So human performance has always been something interesting for me. I want to figure out how to help people, and that's kind of my side of things. But I realized that human performance has really just expanded a tremendous area. So, I used to be really biomechanics and motor learning focused, and now I'm focused on a variety of different things relative to performance. Everything from sleep to stress to, brain aspects to vision. So that side of things is just, again, another platform for me to try to help people, achieve what we call their optimal potential. So
that's awesome. So let's talk about, let's just start with injuries. The rate of injuries that we're seeing, despite all the things that we now know and all the things that we have, it's still, and maybe I'm wrong, but it still seems like the trend is kind of up. What's your idea? What's your thought on what's going on in that department of things with injuries?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and that's really where I focus. Is that I have a focus in the injury prevention and the prediction risk assessment piece, and I just gave a talk yesterday on this. The hard part is injuries are an inherent part of sport, and the more we push the limits, the closer we're going to get to having that fine line of whether we're going to get injured or we're going to be really, really good at performance. And I don't care what area we have that in. So that could be a sprinter and really having hamstring or muscle strain problems, or a football player playing a lot and having some risk of any type of injury. So I think baseball is the same thing. Like, we're really pushing the envelope of what the human body can kind of withstand with throwing as hard and as much as we do. I'm not a proponent of that that single sport is causing all our problems. I don't think it's as simple as that. And I know we want to try to make it simpler, right? So play more sports and you will get hurt less. I'm not sure that that's the exact answer. I think it's one part of it, but I don't think it's all of it. I think there's inherent risk in anything that we do. B, if you're really wanting to be good and at the high level, and all these kids really want to be good, right? Every listener that's on this podcast is because they have something, either they want to help somebody be really good or they themselves want to become really good. And with that, there's risk. So I think, we keep on chasing this. We want to reduce injuries and we want to eliminate injuries. Well, I think that's part of the game a little bit. And what we can do a better job is manage those things. I think we are a society in baseball that grinds it out. I don't know how many times I hear that word of grind and work and continue to, push through. And we lost one of our greatest athletes and heroes from a mentality standpoint, right? The Mamba mentality is to be pushed through and gut through and those things. Well, if you look at the injury history too, there's an injury history there. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? So, one of the best physicians I know, he passed away, Dr. Garrett passed away last summer, and he told me, he's like, look, if you want to prevent all injuries, then don't have them play the sport. But if you want them to be really good, they have to understand that there's some risk in this. And, and I think that's part of it. So I don't think we have a magic cure. I've been part of the pitch counts type of thing, and that's not the magic cure. It's just it's an awareness tool. And I think we just have to be more aware of those things so that we can kind of withstand longer across the time. But yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. So
yeah, I want to talk about the pushing the body, past what it's designed to do or maybe capable of doing. You know, from a, I know you do the biomechanics and all that stuff. Is there that much of a difference in the output and the performance output of grinding it out versus just kind of letting the sequence happen, or what do you find there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a variety of different things that go into it, right? So there's it's whether the engine fits the car, right? So I mean, we see a lot of these kids. I coach a 15U travel team, and I got one kid in particular that I'm looking at, and I'm seeing him, and he's 6'2", he just grew up to 6'2", 6'3", really skinny. He's going to put on weight eventually, but it's just not there right now. And I got two of them, and one is not necessarily hitting the high velo yet, but had a high workload, those types of things. The other one hit a high velo, and I'm concerned about both of them because I'm like, okay, is the engine fitting their body type, right? So can we put a high engine? There's a velocity arm into a body of a car that maybe can't handle that yet. So I think that's a concern. I think the idea of workload and grinding has to be part of the mentality, but it has to be an awareness. Like, people just don't understand recovery very well. And I think we need to understand that recovery is a grind too. Like, you have to, it's sometimes easier for people to work out consistently across the board every single day and think they're doing better, as opposed to sometimes they need to deload. So I never say that we should rest. I don't say rest. I say deload. So we just have to adjust that load. It's no different than us driving a car. We don't go as fast as the car can every single place that we go, because we know that that's going to, and then slam on the brakes. Like, that's going to not be a long-term process for that car and those tires, right? So we have to understand that. I think back to some of the, movies and Days of Thunder, and they talk about when they were running tires, right? I don't know if you remember that movie, but they were running tires. It's like, okay, you run tires your way, and then you run tires my way. And when they ran it really hard, really fast, those tires gave out really fast, and he was slower in the end, as opposed to running it, in a smarter way. Yeah. I think that's what we need to do from a training standpoint. Is harder is not always smarter. So.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point. When we talk about recovery, for the people that are listening that may not really fully understand what that means, can you talk a little bit about what that is and what it entails?
Sure. I mean, recovery, everybody likes to think it's just the arm throwing, right? And everybody who knows how to teach this game of baseball know that it's not the arm just throwing. It's the entire body sequence. Right. So I think from a recovery standpoint, it's, different aspects of stretching, different aspects of deloading, different aspects of stress. I think a really good person on social media that has a lot of follows and puts out tremendous information is Zach DeChant from TCU Baseball. And Zach posted something the other day that was talking about stress. And the body doesn't really know if you add, stress to the shoulder by doing band work, or stress to the shoulder by doing plyo balls, or stress to the shoulder by throwing footballs or frisbees or whatever. It's just no stress. And we have to manage that stress to the body. So that might be sometimes, giving some deload pieces where they're doing some lower level pieces. It might be recovery of stretching and foam rolling and massaging. We've looked at different things from float tanks to different types of photobiomodulation and, all different techniques that you have. But in reality, one of the biggest things is understanding that stress and mental and physical stress is together. We need to be able to handle those types of things. So, I think the old school of going out and running 3 to 5 miles as throwers is kind of not really in the mainstream right now, but I know some people still do it. And some bodies that they handle that stress really well, and some bodies do not. And I think we need to look at recovery processes that are very individual focused. And then the biggest recovery process, and this is the human, piece that people are really missing. And I think a lot of the major league teams and definitely in the NBA and the NFL understand the sleep cycle. And sleep is so important. And I think we miss that on especially kids in young development. I mean, they need more sleep, and our school system isn't really set up for that, right? I mean, we get the youngest kids up earliest, we get our high school kids up earliest, and then we do, we don't have gym space, so then some places do 5:30 a.m. workouts and 6 a.m. workouts. Well, some people are really attuned to that, right? Their bodies are really good in the morning. They're morning people. Their cycle works that way. And there's others that you're really hampering their performance capabilities. Their recovery process is really poor. So you have to kind of understand those things and set up for those pieces. So I think recovery, there's no magic formula. It's really an individual focused on a variety of different things, from nutrition to stress to workload to sleep.
Yeah, and when you talk about sleep, the consistency of what time you go to bed, what time you wake up is important too, right?
Yeah, that routine is very important. I mean, the body really responds and adapts to that really well. I mean, there's really good studies that show, it's not so much the night before or the 2 nights before. It's an accumulation of the weeks and weeks and weeks before that you kind of go into it. So I think a routine is very important from a sleep standpoint, and from a going to sleep standpoint, but also from a waking up standpoint. Some places have the nice time change, and those kind of wreak havoc with your cycle if you have any of those things. People who fly coast to coast know that that's it's a really tough thing, and so you have to kind of put some of those things in motion, right? So you have to have some things that kind of block out the sun. I'm a sleeper with fan noise to kind of calm me down, and there's a routine that I have before going to sleep, and there's a routine I have of waking up, and you got to really, I think, in the sleep cycles, really find your routine and find what works and what's best for you. So
yeah, and so continuing on the sleep. And again, you said everybody's different. We know that with everything. It's hard to, be a coach of a team and understand that everybody's different when you constrain the time and stuff. But with that sleep, how does one know? And maybe this is a tough question, but how does one know how do they know if they're sleeping right? If that is that a thing? If they're
Well, I mean, number one, there's if it's a major sleep disorder, right? They can go to sleep clinics, and there's a variety of high quality sleep experts out there from university settings that are doing, and private settings that are doing it. So that's number one. Number two, I think they're going to have a feeling of being refreshed or not on a regular basis, right? So if you're constantly waking up and really still groggy and really still struggling, and that's an hour later and you're still struggling to do all those types of things, that quality of sleep, disrupted sleep is tough. Deep sleep, there's a bunch of apps out there and sensors that are going to help. I don't know if any of them are the best sensor out there. There's things from rings to, mattresses to, wristbands and armbands and things that, tell you if you're moving and so on and so forth. But I think it's really going to be a sense of, how you're feeling in the morning and how you're feeling in the afternoon and how you're feeling at nighttime. And I think, one of the things that I really try to promote is, it's important that when you're running out of steam in a certain part of the day, it's usually because of one of two things. You're either, your nutrition's off or your sleep cycle's off. And so you can't evaluate them separately, because those two parts are really going to be important on how your energy levels go. And so if you can be consistent on one of those, then you can evaluate what the other one's doing. So I think, again, there's questionnaires that you can do in the morning and how you feel. There's a simple, just a 0 to 5 point scale of how was your sleep, how rested did you feel, and so on and so forth. And that's just a very simple one, and you can track that, on an iPhone or something like that, and gives you an idea of like, okay, well, that sleep pattern works out pretty well for me.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Just that, again, that awareness, you talk about that, just having the awareness of what you're doing and what's going on, how to evaluate yourself. And, if you have that desire to play at that higher level, you'll take that extra step. And it's a tough sell because these kids, they have so much going on. They're so busy. It's hard for them to sit down and say, hey, to kind of journal this a little bit, kind of look at your process and see if it's working out or what you need to adjust. And it's a tough sell, but if they can do that, that would be huge for them, that awareness part.
It is, and it's really hard, right? I mean, we think about it when they're little, right? When they're little, or when they're a year or less than a year or 2 years younger, right? We control their sleep. Like we set them up for their nap during the day, and we set them up for their bedtime, and we don't just let them randomly pick when they have. Now, we know that their sleep cycles change as they move into their teenage years and they move into their adult years, but they have to have that awareness of what that is and understand that you keep on accumulating a lack of sleep, just like you keep on accumulating poor nutrition. There's repercussions of that. And we know that when you were, when they were babies, how did they act out? They acted out, they were tired, they were angry, they were crying, they were just miserable. So we have to kind of have that awareness later on. And, I think a huge thing that misses is a nap time. And, so we don't tell high school kids to take nap time, but what we do try to encourage is like meditation time. And meditation time can give you some similar things as sleep, not as good, but it at least calms you down and de-stresses you. So I think taking some time in the day, right? So think about a high school kid's schedule. They're up at 6, they're on the bus at 6:45, and they're in school and starting for my freshman, he's in school, starting school at 7:20 or 7:10, somewhere around there. And then he goes straight through till 2:30, and then he's got, after school practice, still going, and then he's got home, eat, probably try to get a lift in, and then it's homework time, and then it's, you still have to have some socialization time, and so there's the video games, right? And you just don't know when to turn those video games off, and you got to understand that you need to get your sleep in there. So, sometimes maybe between that 2:30 and that 3 o'clock practice time, can you find 10 to 15 minutes to just close your eyes, meditate, find some quiet space, quiet time, deload the body for a short period of time to then be ready for the next energy burst, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. That's something that because I have my own business, so it's very stressful and stuff like that. And I kind of adopted that meditation time throughout every day. I do it every day, and it's huge in terms of being able to, like you said, deload. That's the word, deload, and just get your mind clear and present, and allow you to be sharper going forward. So I think I'm with you on that. I think that's a huge part.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing those things in different performance areas. Like people love to downplay how much we're spending on locker rooms and things of that nature to make it more comfortable for these individuals, and so on and so forth. Well, the difference is our on button is much greater than it ever was before. I'm connected to my cell phone, and our on, from a work standpoint and from a social media standpoint, it's just on much greater. And so what we're having to understand is that our off button needs to be really good now, as opposed to, it was previously a little bit easier when we, had 3 channels, and the, TV pretty much went dark at, after the 11 o'clock news, and, things like that. Our off button was easier. Now our off button is not as easy, So we need to really understand that we have more options than ever for our on button, and we need to understand and work at our off button. It's not as simple as just, go until you crash and then start all over again.
Right. No, I like that. Okay. I want to jump over to the brain and vision side. That I have a tremendous interest on that side of things. So on the vision side of things, what are you seeing there? Let's talk about baseball. It's so.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say, it's so important, and there's not a lot of focus on it, or if there is, there's not enough. And I think that part of if you can get that part right, then that connects to your brain. So then the brain tells your body what to do. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the vision side of things.
Yeah, I mean, we say that, vision is the gateway to the brain, right? So, and I think, there's some simple things. Actually, I was just talking to a really good sports vision optometrist, Jeff Klosterman, and he's great. He's my go-to vision guy. I'm an expert in some areas, but not in all areas, and vision's not my expertise, but I'm highly interested in it from human performance. So I have a slew of people that I go to, who are really experts, and I can really kind of dig deeper. So, Jeff and I were just talking actually before this call, and he mentioned, training an individual, and that individual hadn't had an eye test, an eye exam, and this is a professional now, since he was 8 years old. And he goes, well, I've never had a problem with my vision, so I didn't think I needed to go get an exam. And Jeff goes, how do you know you didn't have a problem with your vision? Because it doesn't just change overnight. It gradually changes. And so, you don't, it's not really a perceived like, wow, my vision's really bad. It's just like, I'm 49 years old now, and I still think I'm 15, but I realize when I go to jump and hit the backboard, or I sprint with my 15-year-old, he's so much faster than me, that I realize, I'm not as fast as I used to be, and I can't jump as high as I used to be. So there's a test that I kind of use, right? So vision-wise, we don't do that. We just sit there going, well, that looks the same as it always looked. But you don't know those small changes, and then we don't see those things until something glaring happens, right? So like, I have my middle age, barely able to read now, right? So I need light, and I need, reading glasses and all those types of things. And like that became a big change. Well, some of these athletes don't realize that they're missing some simple things. They don't even know that they're missing some of the, rapid eye movement skills that they can have to be able to, give them an advantage. I mean, we know that baseball players have better, quote unquote, dynamic vision than some other athletes. We know that, hockey goalies and things like that have better dynamic vision. But, it's a skill just like anything else. It can be enhanced, it can be trained, it can be, a big piece of performance. And I know there's some vision experts out there who don't think some of these things are trainable, or they don't have an impact. And I sit there going, well, I don't know if there's a direct correlation between somebody's deadlift and how much they can hit, from an exit velo. But I would assume that we're going to have the stronger person, the bigger person is going to have a better exit velo, right? So what we train that way. Well, why wouldn't we train vision the same way? And I don't really see any, dangers of it. Meaning I don't see that the vision training is, besides time, you're not having a big cost in, okay, well, now we've put too much strain on the eyes, and then we're going to have to take 5 days off of using our vision. That's not the way it works. And so I see it as a pro, and I see it as there's some companies that are trying to get into the space and doing some more and more. And there's definitely some, major league teams and in colleges that are trying to focus more on every edge. And I think vision is one of the key ones that people haven't done enough with.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be the next kind of big wave of things. So.
I agree. I hope it does, because I see the benefit with my kids that I work with. And vision more than just that acuity chart. It
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
acuity chart
yeah,
that doesn't tell you whether you can see that just doesn't
yeah.
tell you enough. That's not the whole picture, and that's where a lot of people are. If I could see that, I got good vision. Well, no,
Yeah, no, yeah, it's not the 20/20 part. It's not the acuity part. It's everything else that's a component of it. It's rapid eye movement and convergence and saccadic movements and smooth pursuits, and there's an attention span piece to it. There's a memory piece to it. We all know that. Here's where I have a little bit of there's a lot of people say we need to practice more than we play. And I sit there going, yeah, but you have to play the game at game speed so that your eyes and your perception is working at the highest level possible, right? We know that that's changed in batting practice, right? So now we're making batting practice much more difficult. We're doing multiple machines from multiple angles. We're trying to get more live pitching. If you look at the old films in the 30s and 40s and even into the 50s, you got live pitcher pitching live BP. Why? Because it's training more the game-like situation. I think we can do that with some technologies that we have now. There's definitely some VR things that people have put out, and they're like, well, it's not just like the game. I'm like, yeah, but you can't get it exactly like the game because then your workload from the rest of the body is going to be overloaded. And so what can we do to kind of fill those spots? And, I think that's a very important part on top of looking at some of the, visual performance assessment pieces, on top of what I term vision health, right? So vision health would be, blurred vision and the visual acuity and those types of things.
yeah,
So.
yeah, and where the technology will come into play, while it's not the same, it will help you teach a kid what to look for, because when you ask a kid, hey, what does the fastball look like out of hand, they can't tell you. So you start saying, hey, look for these certain cues, and then you start seeing that enough, you can start picking up those cues out of the hand stuff.
Yeah, and there's definitely technologies that's going to allow us to. I mean, if they've been out for a little bit, they just need to get fine-tuned to get to the general public. But there's definitely technologies out there relative to vision tracking where we can actually really look at where you're looking.
Yeah.
And that may be simply of just like, wow, I was looking in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Or I was never trained on where to look.
Yeah.
And those things, kids can kind of sit there and go, oh wow, this makes it easier. I feel like I'm cheating. Well, yeah. You're getting an advantage because you're seeing something that you've seen before, and now you are quickly processing that information of like, okay, this I mean, we teach the curveball, right? So you see this big hump,
right.
It comes out of the hand and flips up, and you're like, okay, well, this thing's not going to stay up there, and now I have to kind of have a general idea where it's going to come down. We've been doing this for years, right?
Right.
If on an off-speed pitch, hang it, bang it,
Right.
If it's low, let it go, right? I mean,
Right.
we've been doing that, but we haven't been assessing that.
Right.
And I think within the vision piece, we're going to be assessing those things. So.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I've been waiting for a technology like that to see where guys are looking, because a lot of kids, they think they're seeing the ball, they think it,
Yeah.
but they're not seeing it well, and you could tell by watching them swing or whatever that they're not seeing the ball as well as they could. And when you start adding that, when they start understanding how to get that first third window where they're seeing out of the hand, they're amazed how much more time they have to hit.
Yeah.
So
and that, that goes across so many things, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's easy to see from a hitter, right? Whether he's taking balls that are close to, to the plate, or he's like, yeah, that's not a strike. And, they see that. You can see that in hitters, but, it's the same thing in fielders, right? We talk about reading hops, right? Well, if you can't see it, you can't read it. And so, same thing from an outfielder's perspective. And you got to get used to those things. You got to train it, right? So how do we train outfielders? Live BP, see as many balls as you can, track the trajectories of those things. Well, that's a visual component. And so what else are we doing to that vision Are we assessing it properly? Are we training it properly? To get the most out of that versus just going out to, track fly balls. That's part of it. It's not all of it.
Right.
So I would say
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
Jeff. I would say in the vision part, we got to have vision health, we got to have vision performance, and then we have to have game performance and game skill development. And I think those three things are very important when you're putting together this, human performance package. I think people, when they talk about human performance, they get just too caught up in one area of performance. They're either biomechanics focused movements, or they're cardiovascular focused, or they're cognitive focused, or they're vision focused, or sleep focused. And, I can keep on going.
Sure.
And what we need to have is people who can put all those things together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then just to add one piece to the vision part, the other thing is it teaching them what they're looking for. Because I see that all the time.
Yeah.
We work on it, but I don't really know what I'm looking at, what I'm looking for, or anything like that. So that part, you got to teach that part too. Because we can't just assume these kids know see the ball, look for the hump, and what that means. They gotta be shown what that means and what they're looking for.
100%. I mean, we got to use our educational tools, right? Some people can see it, some people can, hear it, some people can feel it. I think we got to show them what that is and what happens with that. I think we got to give them a game plan of what to do with it, right? If you're, all of us who have coached baseball, we're sitting like, okay, 2-0, pick your pitch, right? Okay. Well, but what is my pitch, coach?
Yeah,
what I mean? We don't give them
exactly.
a game plan of like,
right.
Okay, well, what is my best pitch? Well, do you not even know that you have a big, launch angle or an uppercut? You know what I mean? So, and you handle the low inside pitch really well, but you handle the high away pitch really poorly. Yeah, it's a strike, but in a 2-0 situation, let him have that strike if he put it there, but he puts it in your zone and it's a fastball, go and get it. So even have that game plan of what you're doing with their visual piece is very important. So, I mean, it all encompasses different skill sets and different things that we need to kind of, teach these kids. And some of them have it just naturally. They just know. They go to the plate and they know. But that's a rare few. You know what I mean? Like, I love our coach talks about, we don't have instincts, we train them. Hitters aren't born, they're made. And I agree with that. I mean, if hitters were just born, they wouldn't take BP. They wouldn't, be working all this amount of time in the off season to get their timing back. And I mean, you can see spring training games and hitters are just off and, all those things, when people get sent down for, rehab assignments, they got to try to see, we step in and it's all a training piece. And vision is part of that we need to train. So,
yeah. The brain, the pretty fascinating thing. There's a lot more, coming out on it. Have you done anything with like how trauma will affect a performance? Because we know that a lot of times, that there are certain, if a kid has a certain performance issue, sometimes it could be just a trauma that they dealt with that they can't quite overcome. Have you done anything with that, or?
No, I mean, I haven't done that myself too much. I mean, the idea of mental health is huge, and I think that's a really important part. The ideas of pain perception is very important. Some people perceive pain at an entirely different scale. I was talking with a physical therapist up here. I'm up in Chicago right now. Amy Seitz is, looking at some different things relative to how people respond to pain and whether those people who are hypersensitive or hyposensitive, so they're really highly sensitive to pain or they're really low, how do they handle and do they have an increased risk for injury? If you think about it, there's people who really can just compartmentalize and move pain off to the side, right? Those are the people who can handle, ultra marathons, and those people, Navy SEALs, they can get quote unquote comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Why? Because their pain threshold is probably, different than somebody who's, who's not, who's very sensitive to pain. And, you know, you and I might sit in a room and go, man, it's really hot in here. And you might like, yeah, no, that's perfect. And then the other way around, right? You might have a sensitization to cold, and I might be like, no, it's the perfect day. Pain is the same way. So the brain capabilities of responding to just a variety of different stimuli has potential psychosocial, you know, what type of traumatic events have happened to you, so on and so forth. You know, the easy one in baseball is thinking about, you know, the little kid who gets hit by a ball and now becomes scared of hitting, right? Why? Because they had a traumatic event and that really hurt. And they, you know, they get back into the box and they're, you know, they're stepping out. They're, you know, that's a really tough situation to overcome because they're, you know, I mean, we are animals and we are going to protect ourselves, right? That's the very first rule of thumb for an animal is survival, right? So if I got into a box and this big kid just nailed me in the back, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to just be comfortable in there. And we need to train them to like, okay, you know, get back into it. You know, like I taught my kids, you know, when they were little, I was throwing wiffle balls and tennis balls at them. Like, here's how you handle a pitch. Here's how it, you know, if you get hit, here's where it goes. And, you know, so that you're not afraid of it when it kind of gets up. And then, you know, you do have to, you know, quote unquote, I'm not going to bean a kid with a hard fastball, but, you know, they got to get comfortable being inside of the plate. So that's one type of trauma. We've also seen people who had different types of trauma, you know, and again, I haven't seen it, but in the literature, there's things relative to, you know, if you had a major stressor event, like, you know, a sibling or a parent pass away early or unexpected, or sexual abuse or those types of things. Well, people handle their emotions completely different off of, you know, what's the worst thing that happened to you? I struck out at a game. What's the worst thing that happened to you? You know, my you know, spouse or my parents, you know, passed away, or, you know, they were you know, some type of drug problem, or like that's perspective really affects an individual. And everybody has those things. And we know that can have a major effect on how you handle things from a socio-emotional standpoint. So, you know, there's definitely a nurture part to, you know, development, right? So there's this nature nurture part, and we know that nurture part is very important. So.
Yeah. You know, I got interested on that side of it because, you know, you always have like the kids you work with. There's like the kid that do really well, and there's the kid that doing, you know, pretty good. And then there's the kid that just, they're either not the right fit or there's something going on there. And I'm always trying to figure out that group right there to kind of lead you down a bunch of rabbit holes of what could be. So that's where lately I've gotten into, okay, maybe there's some things going on trauma wise that's affecting them from being, or maybe it's the wrong fit, you know, and then where's the balance? How do you figure that part out? And that's the hard part.
Yeah. I mean, if you figure that out, let everybody know, right? Because we have this mental health epidemic going on, right? And, you know, that's the hard part, right? Is figuring people out. I mean, that's the, you know, do we give more chances to the people that aren't the right fit because we're trying to help them become the right fit, right? Should we be spending more time with them as opposed to less time? That's a constant battle. I mean, I think most coaches, you know, most quality coaches think about the kids that, quote unquote, turned out the wrong way. You know, everybody's proud of the things that turn out the right way. You know, you get the kid who goes on to a 4-year college career, gets a, you know, degree, goes on to, you know, whatever pro ball or whatever professional career, gets married, you know, all those things, right? Those are ones that's easy to be proud of. But I think most quality coaches think about, man, what happened to that one kid that I know was on kind of the line and the fence, and, you know, he just went over the other side, and what could I have done differently? What should we have done differently? What could we do? And those are the ones that keep you up at night. And it's hard. You're not going to be able to save everybody. That's the one reality. And there's probably more to it than what you see on the ball field for a high school coach between 2:30 and 7:30. There's more to that life than just that. And the more that we can have open communication, the more that we can really listen. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've been made aware of over the past, I would say my enlightened past 10 years, is listening. And we got to listen to all those cues of the kids. Hey, go home and practice with your dad. And, like, yeah, no, that ain't going to happen. Or, how is, when we really ask, how are you? Really listening to their response. That's a big, big thing that I think we really need to listen to what that answer is when we ask them that question. So it is hard and it's tough that some of these traumatic events that we may never know about, we can just maybe guess and assume on some of these things. We just know that, man, that kid had a tough road, and how do we help him through that road?
Yeah. The technology side of things, it's exciting. It's overwhelming. What too much, what's not enough, that whole dynamic there. What do you, what type of technology for you, and what you're doing, are you pretty excited about, and how do you use it?
Yeah, so at my disposal, so my oldest son doesn't play baseball at all. He runs track and he loves it, and he's great at that. And my youngest is a baseball player, and he's pretty good. So I always said that he was the most tested kid in the country from a motion capture standpoint, because he was tested motion capture at age 5 and age 6 and age 7 and age 8, 9, 10, blah, blah, blah. And he didn't care what it was at that age. It was kind of like, cool, I put on the dots and I stand on a force plate. We're doing force plate assessments, that now is kind of cool. We were doing that a decade ago. The motion capture stuff we've been doing for a while now. And it's amazing that, I used to have the high school team come in and get tested, and we'd have all these things. But, I think technology is just like anything else, just like a drill, right? If you think it's providing worth, then do that. But you got to be, quote unquote, you got to be efficient on it. You got to be knowledgeable on it. And I think people are going out just to buy stuff and to train on stuff because somebody else has it and it's, it looks good. I think technology is just like anything else. It could be used really well if you know what you're doing and you have time and you have, the staff. And then I think some things are just, put poorly to use. And again, just like any drill, it's not so much just the drill. We know it's how you execute that drill, right? We can all teach bunting and double plays and all those types of things, but it's how we set it up, how we execute it, how we believe in it, how often we do it, how much we care about it. So if you're just going to put in, and I don't care what technology, XYZ technology, is it so that it looks good, or is it so that you actually use it? And if you actually use it, how do you use it? Why do you use it? Do you believe in it? So on and so forth. So, and technology is not going away. We're going to continue with technology. I think the biggest thing is that we have this big shift, right? So everybody talks about new school, old school, and Fred Corral from University of Missouri talks about, it's kind of now school or present school. And I think that's what we're going to kind of shift to, is this kind of present school. And the idea that, we need to have both sides really working together. But in reality, I think what we're going to do is grow both sides, meaning you're going to have some of the, the long-standing kind of traditional views with some of the new views, and really they just are informing your current view. And I think more coaches need to understand what's the actual mechanics behind these technologies. And I'm not telling them to go get an engineering degree, but to to have an understanding of like what frame rates means, what sampling frame rates is the same thing. How are they filtering data? How are they collecting this, 3D motion capture, or, to understand that, what Newton's laws are. And, it's 3 basic laws of motion. And we learned these things in grade school. It's amazing. The stuff I teach at the university level, I tell my class, you got taught these things in grade school. You just forgot what they were, and you really didn't know how to apply them. So I think that's the same thing with technology. Coaches just need to not just buy it from a sales rep, but understand what's behind that technology for what are they trying to get out of it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know of, I've heard of this coach who, he's doing the best he can. I'm not knocking anybody. They're all doing the best they can. They all want to help. But he actually developed his pitching roster based on the Rapsodo numbers, not whether they can get outs. And then, so and then his like blast numbers. So his whole roster is designed around that. And I'm just like, wow. I thought the name of the game was to get out and hit the ball, get hit, So it's interesting.
So you're really making me laugh, because that's exactly my problem. It's like, oh man, so many kids are just there for the numbers. And I look at it, I was like, yeah, you were up to whatever number, right? It's all relative, So
right.
The younger the kid, he wants to break 70. The older the kid, he wants to break 80. The older the kid, he wants to break 90. And then, the big kids, they want to break 100, right? So, and I always say, what is the goal of baseball? And everybody like, oh, it depends on who I'm talking to have fun, for teammates, for camaraderie, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, but the game, like if we were to say step 1, how do you win a baseball game, right? And we've created this Monopoly game, and it said rule number 1, to win the game, you must do what? And it's like, oh, we must field, we must pitch, we must hit, we must be good teammates. And I was like, no. What is the absolute rule? And they come back with like, well, I don't know. I was like, it's to score more runs than the other team. That's how you win the game. It's not whether you hit exit velo or you have a launch angle or you have these, great numbers. It's to win the game by scoring more runs. So how are you going to do that? And I think people forget that when it's technology based and all those things. And I look for players, I'm involved with a variety of different things that look at different types of, showcases and numbers and blah, blah, blah. And I just sit there going, yeah, but what's going to tell me that this kid is going to be really good at helping us win games? And the numbers are not going to be they're part of it. They're not all of it. And we need to, as coaches, realize like, yeah, I'm not going to put it all on the numbers.
Right.
So yeah, that's we talk about for our high school. We play our games at 5 p.m. We're like, okay, do we want a 3 p.m. guy or a 5 p.m. guy? And we all sit there going, hey, we see those 3 p.m. guys. They feel fantastic when there's no pressure, and they hit rockets off of tee and front toss, and,
right.
Maybe even off the machines, and then they get in a game and there's 5 p.m. guy becomes nothing, and like we need 5 p.m. guys. We don't need 4 p.m. guys and 3 p.m. guys and 2 p.m. guys. We need 5 p.m. guys who are going to be really good between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock for our Ohio high school games.
Right. So. Yeah. Well, we're kind of approaching the hour, and I don't want to take up, too much more of your time, but let's just kind of wrap up.
Yeah, I could do this all day long.
Oh, I could too, but
this is a blast.
Yeah, no, I'm having fun. So
I appreciate it. This is good.
Yeah. So let's just kind of wrap up. So maybe what would be like maybe some resources, maybe some books or your favorite, I don't know, Twitter account, website. What are some of your resources that you like to?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple Twitter people that I would really follow, and because I think they do a really nice job on a variety of different things. Joe Eisenman, who does a lot of development process for kids. So really, LTAD, which is long-term athlete development. He was a former professor out of Michigan State, and he's out doing some different things. But his pieces on development and understanding having a game plan for child development, Joe is really good at putting out that information. He puts out blogs. He's a baseball lover like I am. And I think he puts out a tremendous amount of quality information for youth development out there. So Joe Eisenman would be one follow that I would definitely, there's a variety in the collegiate ranks and the professional ranks who, have a lot of different things. I think really looking at not only what do they post, but then really reading around it and beyond it. Don't just get sold on the social media guru, right? You really got to investigate further and find some trusted resources for those things. And then my final piece is, in developing youth baseball players, and for me, youth is, anything younger than me, right? So that's basically 48 years old and down. We still have to not forget to instill and allow freedom and enjoyment in the game and in practices. And my high school kids know I'm as intense as anybody, but the kids that I really train and do more with, and I coach the infielders, they know we have a motto this year, free and fast. Like we got to enjoy what we're doing. Like we have to, I really dislike when kids leave a facility and they look miserable. They look like it's just, it was an awful day at the office. And I'm not saying we need to make it all rose-colored and it's like, a wonderful day and always be happy. But, like, we should have some enjoyment when we're playing this game. And I think we don't do that enough for people. And when I say this game, the game of baseball, the game of work, the game of life, like, we got to enjoy it. And so I always kind of end with enjoy the journey. I think we can't forget that because we only have one life and we got to enjoy that life. And, whatever you believe afterwards. And, I'm a God believer and I believe, in Jesus Christ and those types of things. And I think we need to understand that we got to do our best life here so we can have our best life, afterwards too. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you touched on a good point of, there's so much information out there. There's so many people that are talking. There's some people that are really loud, but you gotta find the right people. You gotta dig down and figure out who's really putting out the right content, because it's easy to get lost into who's the loudest. And again, I different things work for different people. So I don't think there's anything that's wrong, but I do think that there's information that, if you went a little bit further, you would kind of maybe reconsider. So there's a lot of young coaches that are out there trying to figure out what they want to believe, what they're trying to do, and all that stuff, and they get lost in that who's the loudest. And again, nothing wrong with that, but if you really want to get deep, you got to weed your way through and find who are the quality people, and try to develop a relationship with those people.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Usually, the quality people, they're wide open with their thoughts and ideas, and they're not trying to sell you stuff and things of that nature. Right. And I think that's the important part is you find the right fit for you, and I think that's everything. What's your style? What's your fit? What do you have? What's your resources? What are you interested in, and how do you want to do this? And I don't think there's a right way. And technically there could be potentially some wrong ways, but I think everybody's going to have their own way. And right. I think that's an important part. So,
yeah. Okay. One last question. If you were me interviewing yourself, what would you have asked that I didn't ask?
If I were you, interviewing me, man, I don't know. I don't have I'm not a great interviewer. I don't interview enough people. I would say, for me, why do I love baseball? I think that's a common thread. That would be a question that I would have asked is, and I can give you the answer is, I think it's a platform. It's my platform that I feel most comfortable with in sharing messages of a variety of different things. And it's something that I fell in love with at a young age and lost a little bit of time with it. and it's something that for me keeps me somewhere between the ages of 12 and 15 on a regular basis. And I think if we can live life like that, I had a good 12 to 15-year-old upbringing. Somebody else might say, my 12 to 15-year-old wasn't good. Then I say, hey, have it put you into 20 to 25 or 8 to 10 or whatever. For me, baseball has been that one thing that helps me connect, and it's the most comfortable place that I'm ever at. So it's a field of dreams for me. It is heaven. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jimmy, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
Geoff, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much, and keep on putting out some really good stuff and helping some people. So appreciate it. Anytime you want to give a chat, just give me a holler.